cloud. Oh. Okay, thank you for reminding me. Yes, I did want to record. Okay, hi Judy. Hi
And
Julie.
I'll be back in a moment.
Okay.
Hi, Julie.
Hi, Judy.
Okay, and maybe now I can. Yeah, now I've got my 3 dots. I can. It's not letting me rename myself.
God is with us behind Joel.
Well, I thought for the Parsha, you may prefer the Akedah rather than the burning of Sodom.
You know, both of them are pretty bad. I mean, you know, Abraham doesn't ultimately kill him, but still.
Well, but God
We
does.
have go ahead, Joel.
God does kill Sodom, so you might prefer the Akedah.
Okay, I have 11:01. What does everybody else have?
10:59.
I have 10:59.
10:59 too. Something is not right with my watch. All right, now it just turned to 11. Shall we wait a minute or two?
But by the way, I must say, I could not open your materials, so
You could not open them.
I could not.
Okay, how about everybody else?
No
Yeah.
problem.
No
right.
problemo.
Okay. Joel, do you get our news and notes?
Yep, that's where I tried to open it from.
Oh boy, okay.
I got it and printed it.
Me
Okay.
too.
All right, so Joel,
Well,
you
actually,
just
I tried to get it off of the weekly, what is it, the tidbits or the,
News and notes.
yeah, that's where I tried to get on. I clicked on the link and nothing,
And some what kind of computer do you have?
PC.
Oh,
Yeah,
Joel, I have an extra copy if you need it.
well, I suppose I would need it.
If you want a copy for Thursday's class, I can make it for you for then. You know, so that you'll have it.
Okay, thank you.
all right, Joel, so what I'm going to ask people to do is, you know, read different sections. So I'll ask everybody to read, you know, clearly and distinctly. And hopefully, Joel, you'll be able to catch the gist of what's going on. I want to see your faces, and that's why I don't want to screen share. So that's why, and maybe you could talk to Anne in the office. She generally answers the phone. She's pretty good about computer stuff. And I would be happy if I have your email to email you a copy. But not now. Not at this moment.
I'll try to follow as best I can.
Okay, all right. So let me just give this introduction to this class. I've never taught this class before. And for a long time, I've wanted to explore this book, which has been on my shelf for a long time. It's at the very top, Matters of Life and Death, and then A Jewish Approach to Modern Medical Ethics, and it's by Rabbi Dr. Elliot Dorff. I'm sure if you wanted to get the book, you could find it on Amazon, and it's been in print for a number of years, so you could probably get it used. So I've wanted to explore this, and I thought, you know, what's the best way to make me explore this is to give a class on it. Then I absolutely have to read it. Okay, so that's from whence this cometh. Rabbi Dr. Dorff has been teaching at the formerly called University of Judaism. Hi, Beth. Now called the American Jewish University in Los Angeles. He's also currently the chair of the Committee on Jewish Law and the Joint Committee, I think it's called, on Jewish Law and Standards, which is a standing and one of the most important committees of the Rabbinical Assembly / United USCJ, United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism. He is brilliant. He also happens to be a kind and caring man. When I emailed him, I was many moons ago secretary to the law committee, And so I said, long time no see. I'm wondering if you have a syllabus, about this. As a matter, like within hours, he responded to me. So he's a mensch as well as a scholar. He has served, I forget under what, I was going to say Rabbi, but President of the United States as a consultant on ethics in general. So he really has an expertise in this. Beth, we're just seeing your hair and one eyebrow. So if that's what you want, that's fine. But if you don't, hi, Mike,
Good morning.
then you may want to change the angle of your camera. So I've just been introducing this book, and more importantly, its author, Rabbi Elliot Dorff, Rabbi Dr. Elliot Dorff. He's what I would call a gadol, like a great man in our generation. And his perspective is conservative Jewish. Okay, so, and he talks about in the book how other movements may take a look at medical ethics, Jewish medical ethics, differently and how they would do that, but I'm not going to go into that here. Today, what I wanted to discuss, and it may be that we have to do this over 2 classes, it depends on how much you participate, which Ralph has told me. What happened to Ralph? Well, he's momentarily not, told me you like to have a lot of discussion. So it depends on how much discussion we have about this. But I wanted to present, before we got into any specific topic, I wanted to present what Rabbi Dorff believes are, 7 fundamental beliefs that are underlying Jewish medical ethics. All right. And as we explore each one, I want you to think about what are the implications of these underlying beliefs, because they will affect how we, that is to say, the conservative movement, and to some extent the other movements, decide about medical ethics. Okay? All right, I'm getting a lot of blank stares. You shake your head or say something or, smile, blow your
Got
nose, whatever. Okay.
I told you there was a lot of discussion, Rabbi.
Yes, right. Well, so far I'm the only one talking, but we haven't really started.
We're
So-
listening, we're listening.
Okay, and at a 1:45, I'm going to stop and ask you where you would like to go next. I mean, we can follow some of the things that are in his book. We definitely will, but I want this to be relevant to you to the extent that I can make it so. Okay? And we won't just be relying on this book, but also on some of the tshuvot, the responsa that have been written regarding medical ethics by the law committee, CJLS, the Jewish Law Committee of the conservative movement, because I mean they are more up to date than this book is, and he also has a few of the tshuvot himself on within the law committee. So what I'm going to ask is, we're going to start with what Dorff believes is one of the fundamental beliefs underlying Jewish medical ethics. And that is that the body, hi Penny, that the body belongs to God. Does everybody have the handout except for Joel? Yes? Okay, Penny, you've got it
Yes.
too? Okay. You are great students. Listen to directions, yay. All right, now I realize that David is on here and he is a retired cardiologist. So I am humbled by this, but.
Judy
and-
Wall's a doctor too.
Yes.
Judy?
Yes, I'm a retired doctor also.
Oh, okay, all right, so I'm really doubly humbled.
I'm
And
I'm a retired doctor as well, a doctor of jurisprudence, as is Ralph.
Okay,
Oh, you
well,
outed me. You outed me, Larry.
It
okay,
just makes us all humbled now.
I worked in
Okay.
a hospital for 40 years.
right. You know a little bit about medical
I
ethics.
visited the hospital.
Okay, so we will start with these underlying beliefs, recognizing that we have experts in both the legal field and the medical field among us, which should make it a wonderful class, and other intelligent people besides. All right, so
Rabbi, can I interrupt you just for a moment?
sure,
Just
Joel.
Fairly bad news for those of you who knew him. Howard Faust passed away last night.
Sorry.
Howard
to hear
who?
that.
Howard
Faust.
Faust. So. sorry to
H-A-L?
interrupt you.
I'm
He was a
very
member-
sorry.
Yeah, he was a member of Temple Israel. A lot of people knew him, and just
Very
a-
nice man.
yes, he was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Baruch Dayan Emet, and I'm sorry to hear that. I hope he did not have a lot of pain.
It was very quick.
Was it COVID related?
No,
I've been sick for the past few weeks.
Sorry to hear it in any case. And hi, Ruth.
Hello, I'm sorry I'm late, but here I am.
Okay.
Good morning.
All right. So what we're going to do is discuss this first underlying belief. The body belongs to God. Is there someone who feels comfortable reading Hebrew? If not, I will do it. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Okay, I'll read the Hebrew, and I am going to ask Marvin to read the English of Exodus 19:5. The ata, that is, and now, im shamoa tishma'u bekoli, if you will indeed listen to my voice, ushmartem et briti, v'hayitem li segula mikol ha'amim ki li kol ha'aretz. Marvin, you're on.
Now then, if you will obey me faithfully and keep my covenant, you shall be treasured possession among all the peoples. Indeed, all the earth is mine.
Okay, if you need to talk, please mute yourself. So we'll keep going. All right, so I have put in italics, indeed, all the earth is mine, because what does all the earth is mine include?
Mankind.
Humankind, right, and that includes our bodies. All right, this is at least, one of the proof texts that that Dorf brings, and I'm sure it is called upon in different tshuvot about medical ethics. Okay, Larry Burek, I'll read the Hebrew of Deuteronomy 10:14. Hein, l'Adonai Elohecha, hashamayim u'shmei hashamayim, ha'aretz v'chol asher ba.
Mark, the heavens and the heaven of heavens belong to the Lord your God, the earth and all that is on it.
Okay.
Exclamation.
Exclamation point. Okay. I will tell you that if I was not translating the Bible, I would not be referring to Lord. Actually, I could have changed it to Adonai. And I don't generally love God as he, because I think that limits God. But we're talking the Torah here. So, all right. Another proof text that what?
That everything.
Come on, you guys are smart.
That everything belongs to
Belongs to
God.
God. The body,
Including-
people belong in God, bodies belong to God.
Okay.
The earth and everything that's on it, which would include all life and non-life for that matter.
Right, that's interesting, even the rocks. Okay, Psalm 24:1, I'm gonna ask
Does that
Judy.
include by the way, does that include the mosquitoes?
I would assume that it does, unfortunately. They serve a purpose though, right?
Maybe, somewhere.
Allows us to kvetch.
Cause us to kvetch, but I'm sure they eat something that, is out there.
Some birds eat them, cats eat them.
Okay, all right, so they serve a purpose. They may not like it, but they serve a purpose. Okay.
Rabbi, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Based upon those passages, how do we deal with the fact that God in Scripture gave away the land that he originally possessed? For example, Israel was given to the descendants of Abraham. A lot of other things were given away. So does God still possess them?
Joel, this is a very good theological question, which I am going to choose not to deal with because it will send us far afield of where we want to go with this topic. It's
I find it
huge.
interesting that you cited those Bible passages.
Well, I cited them because Dorf cites them as kind of part of this underlying belief that we want to recognize before we start talking about, but I am saying it's an extraordinarily good question that we're going to put to the side, at least for now, okay? Psalms 24, LeDavid, Mizmor Ladonai Haaretz Umloa Tevel V'Yoshvei Va. Some of you may recognize that. Julie, want to translate that?
Sure, I probably could have even done that one in Hebrew.
Yes,
Of
you
David,
could.
yeah. Of David, a psalm. The earth is the Lord and all that it holds, the world and its inhabitants.
Okay, another proof text. Okay, Beth, you're going to be on for the translation of Genesis 14:19.
I am still trying to find it on my phone. I wasn't able to print it, so go to
You
somebody else to read.
Okay,
My
all
printer's
right.
not working.
Your printer's not working?
No.
All right, that would be, check your printer, Joel. See if
I'm
it's
trying to get it on my,
connected.
I'm trying to get it on my phone.
Okay, all right, Mike, I'm going to ask you to translate Genesis 14:19. Vayivarchehu vayomer Baruch Avram le'el elyon konei shamayim va'aretz.
He blessed him, saying, "Blessed be Abram of God Most High, creator of heaven and earth."
And
Ju-
koneh can also mean possessor. I don't like this fact, but when traditionally when a man marries a woman, he gives her something that makes a kinyan, right? From the same root as koneh. That's in these days usually a ring. It wasn't always that, because the man is acquiring the woman in marriage. Not a concept I love, just the way it was. Yes, Larry. Okay. All right. Penny.
You want me to read the rest? Or the commentary, or no?
Sure. If you continue, Mike.
For Judaism, God owns everything, including our bodies. God lends our bodies to us for the duration of our lives, and we return them to God when we die. Seems like that sort of answers Joel's question. Consequently, neither men nor women have the right to govern their bodies as they will. Since God created our bodies and owns them, God can and does assert the right to restrict how the right to restrict how we use our bodies according to the rules articulated in Jewish law.
Okay. MLD is Matters of Life and Death, the book that I'm using. You can keep going.
Okay. Examples of rules. Jews need to take reasonable care of our bodies. Jews have the duty to preserve their own lives. Pikuah nefesh. Jews are also bound by the positive obligation to take steps to save the lives of others. The imperative to do so is derived from the biblical command, "Do not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor," Leviticus 19:16.
Okay, that verse will come up again.
Rabbi, I have a question.
Yes, I'm sorry. I got to figure out who's speaking. Oh, Marvin. Okay.
Yes. Okay. I have a question about that pikuah nefesh.
Pikuach nefesh.
Pikuach nefesh. Duty to preserve your own life. I'm thinking of the three cardinal sins of Judaism. You know, idolatry, murder, and sexual immorality. And there are biblical sources where people give up their lives. I know in particular when it comes to idolatry. And there may be others with sexual immorality, and I'm sure with murder, you're not supposed to make the one with murder makes the most sense to me, that if you have to, in order to save your life, you have to murder someone. But I'm wondering, what is the conservative view on this? Because I know I've talked to an Orthodox rabbi, And he told me that I asked him about the Marranos when they were forced to convert. And I asked him, what should they have done? And he said, they should have given up their lives or they should have left, but they should not have converted. So I'm just wondering, what is the conservative view on that?
I am not sure that, I don't know about a conservative view on that. But I don't think we would rule about the Marranos the same way that your Orthodox rabbi did. I mean, I think we also have to take into, it seems to me, we have to take into consideration that of those Marranos, there ended up being, I mean, I'm a descendant of those Marranos, or those who actually fled Spain. So I don't think we would have that same reading or same interpretation, but it's really great of you to point out these three exceptions. And he talks about them in the book. And he also points out that the Talmud develops this such that it's one thing if something is done in private, and another thing, at least for idol worship, I don't know about murder, and another thing if it's done publicly, because at least for idol worship, that when you're doing it publicly, you're disgracing God and you're disgracing Judaism. You know, if you have to fornicate with someone who would be an adulterous relationship to you, like God forbid, father, daughter, or whatever, that's you know, making a mockery of what Judaism believes in. Let's say, so for incest and adultery, which is broader than it might seem. And yes, if someone says, I'm putting a gun to, someone puts a gun to your head and said, you have to kill that person, I believe we would still hold that is true. Okay, so great knowledge and great addition to the discussion, so that what you're pointing out is an exception to this general rule of us needing to take care of our own bodies. But I want to ask everybody, so what are the implications for Jewish medical ethics of God owning our bodies belonging to God?
I'd like to sort of jump in here and talk about the separation of our bodies and our souls, the neshama. And many, particularly in Jewish ethics, would say that the neshama is the part of God, and our bodies are simply a physical thing. And when someone dies, and the laws, particularly of the 7 days, the 30 days, the 11 months that you say Kaddish, help with that separation. And the body goes first because it's a physical thing, but the neshama actually is said to last forever. And that is the spark of God.
Okay, if you flip your pages, you will see that we're going to talk about this. All right. Actually, it's just, you know, the basic underlying principle 3. The human being is an integrated whole. So we will talk about that. I am familiar with that, David, and certainly at some point have believed that. But Dorf is going to talk a little bit differently about that, as we will see.
Can I add a point to what David said that might be a little, not contrary, but a little addition? You talked about the neshama, but remember that the nefesh, that type of soul, does remain it with the human body or in the vicinity of the human body. So that does remain, and it complicates matters.
Yeah, it does. And whereas in modern day parlance, neshama refers to soul, it is not so clear in the Bible that either nefesh or neshama refers to soul exclusively. It may be referring to the human being itself and its whole. We will talk about that. I would still like to hear some reactions to what are the implications of the body belonging to God. Larry is really wanting to answer this.
Yes. My question with respect to Rabbi Dorf's comments, he says Jews have the duty to preserve their own lives. They're bound by the positive obligation to take steps to save the lives of others. What comes to mind is doctor-assisted suicide and the decision to withdraw treatment from a feeding tube to hasten death. Are those things no-nos under Jewish law or the conservative version of Jewish law in light of what Rabbi Dorf has said here?
Okay, good question. I do think, we will take a look, if you choose that as a topic you want to pursue as a group, we will take a look at euthanasia and what Judaism has to say about it. I believe that unless someone has come up with a nuanced approach to that, specifically euthanasia, that it is not allowed. The question of removing a feeding tube or even a ventilator really becomes one of whether one is actively killing someone or whether one is preventing someone from dying. Okay, and there will be different opinions on that. In fact, Rabbi Dorf and Rabbi Reisner, I think, both allow some of those things in the Tshuvot they wrote for the law committee, but based on different things. But the idea being that there are some things that, well, I'm sure one of the sources is this. There is a midrash, a legend, about Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, Rabbi Judah the Prince, who is considered to be the compiler of the Mishnah around the year 200. And he was very beloved. He was also wealthy. He also represented the Jews to the Roman government. And he was dying. And his disciples kept praying and praying and praying and praying and praying. They prayed ceaselessly around him so that he would not die. And it was only when his handmaiden, I think deliberately, dropped something, I believe she was looking in a window, dropped something that broke, that they stopped praying for I don't know how many seconds. And during those seconds, Rabbi Yehuda died. And I believe that is used as a proof text as to the difference between preventing someone from dying versus killing someone. All right, good question though. Good question. Okay, I think Beth was first and then Ralph.
Going back to your question regarding God owning our body, in respect to God, isn't it our responsibility of taking care of our body?
Absolutely.
Even though we own it.
Right, that's one of the things that Dorf outlined, right? We have to preserve our own lives and take reasonable care right, of our own body.
Do we have to give it back in the same condition that we got it?
Naked? No.
If that is true, Ralph, we're in big
We're all in
trouble.
trouble.
Because I looked a
Oh,
whole lot
well-
different when I was 12 years old than I do now.
Well, what about saving? And this was a real situation in a hospital that the ethics committee had to deal with. When you have to like save the life of a mother, like if you have to abort a child to save the life of a mother, like what
Unborn.
an unborn, yes. And you know, when we had a Catholic hospital within our system, that caused a lot of ethical decisions, you know, because you had the Catholic Church that was weighing in on a lot of decisions. But you know, if you didn't do anything, the mother and the child would die. And if you aborted the baby, the mother would live. But the Catholic Church was very frowned upon abortion, you know, and like, so in Judaism, I would think that you would save at least the life of the mother.
That is indeed true. The mother's life takes precedence. The baby, this I didn't get from Dorf. This is, you know, a long time ago. The fetus is considered a rodef, someone who is pursuing the mother, you know, as if, you know, you were going to kill someone. However, that is before the baby is born. If they're now, I'd have to look into more recent Shuvot about this. If the baby is halfway out already, then I think we just let nature take its course. At least that was the traditional reading, and that is in ancient, relatively ancient Talmudic sources. In general, the mother's life takes precedent, and if the fetus is still inside the mother, that's definitely the case. If it's more than the head out, I think that was where there was of you know, because we don't believe, unlike the Catholics, that a baby is a life inside the mother's womb. In fact, because there were so many deaths of children, you know, in childbirth in ancient times, there is an opinion that you can't really call a baby a bar kayama, right? Someone who is destined to live until 30 days old. Now, that definition of bar kayama, I'm sure, has changed since we have the technology to birth babies before they're, you know, fully formed and they live. Do you know what I'm saying? That
a lot of medical technology.
Right. So I think that definition of having to wait 30 days after the birth for the baby to be a bar kayama, I imagine has changed with technology. Okay, but these are all good questions. All right, I think I'm going to let Marvin, because Ralph, wait, but you didn't really say something serious.
No, that was
okay.
my
If you're saying something serious,
yes,
feel
I
free.
have a serious-
And when you're talking about reasonable care, how does that apply to vaccines?
Well, this is a very
Okay.
good question. And I'm sure there are a number of Shuvot recently written by the law committee, and I am sure they all say you need to be vaccinated, taking care of our bodies. Haven't looked at them. I haven't looked at them, but right. Exactly, you guys are getting it. Okay.
But not all of our people are following that.
Yeah, the ultra Orthodox
So
are following that.
are we taking this position that the body belongs to God as an axiom for moving forward, because, you know, I could see another interpretation of these verses that, but if you don't want to go there, if this is the basis that we're going to move on, yeah, that's fine.
Dorf does consider, but I'm interested to hear how you could see those verses. Whoever iPad is, can you please show your name?
I'm not sure how to do that, but it's Janine Thomas.
Okay, Janine, can you
Okay.
show your face?
I don't know how to do that.
Okay, well, it's nice to have you here, Janine.
You know who I
Okay.
am.
So
Yeah.
in the same way that I refer to my children, you know, as if they are a possession of mine. They don't belong to me. They are their own separate individuals. And in the same way that an artist says, you know, that's my work on the wall, even though the museum bought it from me, you know, it still, in a sense, belongs to him. It's his creative idea that's sitting there on the wall, okay? So basically, you know, I'm talking about these terms being used as, what's the word I want?
Metaphors?
Symbols of an idea. You know, these are God's creations, and they belong to him in the sense of its creation. But you know, he has given us complete control. That's the whole thing. We have those moral decisions to make. You know, he may set the rules, but you know, we still belong to ourselves. I mean, that's another position I think you could take if you want to look at these as images of ideas. And I think you almost have to. I know we're not into it, but when we get into the next one, where we talk about being created in God's image, I mean, you know, again, we're talking in terms of ideas, images, and what have you, and not necessarily in the strict meaning of the words.
Okay, good point. Wonderful point. I hadn't really thought about that. And indeed, Ralph, I mean, I don't think that's going to disappear in terms of a basis for deciding Jewish law, but we are given free will. And though God would want us to take care of our bodies, and God would want us to save our bodies and save other people, including non-Jews, according to the way the laws come down, we have free will, right? I think it was Beth who said, not, you know, a number of Orthodox Jews have not been vaccinated. First of all, modern Orthodox rabbis, you know, I mean, I have attended many times the modern Orthodox synagogue in Columbus, and they are, you know, they are all for immunization. They are not allowing people who are, if they're allowing people who are not vaccinated into shul, they have to sit in a separate spot. They have to wear a mask. Everybody, I think, has to mask. I don't quite understand why. I don't quite understand the underlying reason why some of the ultra-Orthodox rabbis are ruling that you don't have to be vaccinated. I just don't understand it in terms of this. I understand, I don't agree with, but I understand why a number of thousands of ultra-Orthodox Jews attended weddings and large gatherings when there was no vaccine, because they felt that, the simcha of this wedding, or the obligation to pray with a minyan, not just a home, was more important than getting vaccinated. They prioritized. I do not understand now why while there is a vaccine, that they are choosing not to get vaccinated. I don't understand that. Okay, Judy.
Well, I was just going to say that some of the women have this idea that it's going to affect their fertility, and since having children is so important, they're not.
It's been proven negative.
Of course, it's not true, but that doesn't prove that people are not rational in their decisions. I mean, that's just a point.
Right. Thank you, Judy.
I'd like to.
Rabbi, the comment on Ralph's thought relative to people having complete control. I mean, God creating, but then people have complete control. And in my mind, it isn't complete control. It's complete control within boundaries, within some constraints.
Within the abilities that God gave us, and the capabilities that God gave us,
and some rule, and within the constraints of some rules of living. And so we have to be mindful of those as well.
The fact that I can see, or the fact that I can feel things, I have no control over, having those abilities. But otherwise, I have free will within whatever capabilities I have.
All of this discussion, from infants to your last discussion of your choices, have to do with the question at the so-called of life. And so the big question from a medical point of view, if your body is alive, but your brain is dead, whether from a stroke, from an injury, from they've had a cardiac arrest and can get their heart back, but the brain is dead. You can prove the brain is dead with no brain waves. My question from a medical point of view, is that person alive, or is the body? The question is the soul and the life and the brain, that is what life is, as opposed to just the body. Any comments?
David, this is a complicated question.
Oh boy.
Yes, I know.
It's a complicated question, and I have, when I served as secretary of the law committee, there was a tshuva written by a respected member, Rabbi Daniel Nevins, and he said respiration. Respiration was the, marked the end of life. I don't know that.
That meaning that they couldn't breathe on their own?
Artificially or naturally?
Respiration meaning they couldn't breathe on their own?
Right, I believe it's on their own. So exactly how that
respiration is in the brainstem, but not in the respiration comes from the brainstem, as opposed to the center, to the part of the brain that says we're alive or not alive. Right.
So I'll admit ignorance to knowing where that has gone and to what extent because it meshes with brain death from a Jewish legal point of view. Just ignorance. Poor Larry has had his little hand up.
Yes, thank you. Sorry about the thing in the back. My wife asked this. If you take these words, the body belongs to God, literally, that would suggest that you don't have to do anything and just sort of rely on God to do the work. One could interpret, for example, the midrash that you gave us about the rabbi dying, and they were praying, and then the moment they stopped praying, he died. That one could interpret that God had that moment then to exercise the control to discontinue that person's life, and that we had nothing to could do about it. I don't particularly choose to follow that line of reasoning, and I would read the various things that we've looked at so far to mean that we should follow God's law and God's intentions and how we live our life and how we take care of our body, and that in a broader sense, you then open the question of what would God's what is God's law, if you please, with respect to the various situations we were talking about, removing the feeding tube, assisted suicide, Julie's example from her experience, and so forth. I would much prefer to engage in discussion in that way, and look at, instead of taking the clause as an absolute, looking at it as subject to either exceptions or a broader meaning of what it means to belong to God.
Okay, Larry, first of all, the first thing that you said, I don't think is true. Okay, we are at 11:45.
Put the clothes in the dryer.
Yeah. No. I wish I was able to multitask like that, but I'm not.
I thought it was God telling you what to say.
It seems to me we're still going to be working on this next week. All right, so we won't talk about, unless we want to stop right now and talk about topics we definitely want to.
Well, Larry, I like what you said, but it, you can't just say that it belongs to God and God's going to control all of this, because, God gave us free will. I mean, that's the blessing of all of this, is that it's not up to, it's not up to God to make us geniuses or idiots. I mean, we have to put the work in to be able to achieve what we want to achieve. So I think it would work the same with our body. I mean, we either could exercise or not exercise. We can either eat a healthy diet or not eat a healthy diet. I mean, it's not as if we're going to just go through our merry way and do whatever we want, and God's going to make us healthy or not healthy because we've given our body over to God.
I totally agree with you. And that's why I dismissed that interpretation and go with the broader interpretation. And so you and I are on the same page.
Really?
If we choose, yes, we are. If we choose not to have a healthy diet, and if we can find things that would suggest that God's law would not be that, then that's our choice. But we're not acting consistent with what God expects of us, would be my comment. We made the wrong choice.
But good people who do good things still die young.
Well, of course. And now that we'll get into a wholly different question.
Right. And Larry, I don't think we disagree either. I don't think that God, micromanages. Okay. We're not puppets on a string. And so God doesn't say, okay, this is my law. And just, maybe if we had not gotten out of the Garden of Eden, it would have been as you said, and God would have taken care of everything, whatever, but that's not the way it is. Okay, I'm going to take, I think Janine wanted to say something. Janine, do you still want to say something?
No, I'm fine.
You're fine. And then
Ted is here too.
Oh, good. Terrific. Maybe after the class, between the two of you, you'll figure out how to show a picture. Okay. All right, Ralph, this is going to be the last comment, and then we have to address the other thing I talked about.
Okay, so the word I was struggling for before was metaphor, that this is all a metaphor. Anyhow, the comment that I want to make is I thought more about what Mike had to say, and I guess you could say in a way, God owns us. When I was talking about the limitations, it's like we're birds in a cage, in a sense, that we have these limitations, but with whatever we do within the cage, and it's, you could say it's God's cage. And in that sense, you know, he owns us. But within the cage, we can do whatever we want to do.
Right, right.
We-
I
Ralph,
I'm just,
Ralph, I think we can also determine how big or how small that cage is. But
Oh, I think we're expanding the cage all the time.
for better or for worse, okay? I mean, one of the questions that Dorf raises, and you know, I'm sure we would all concur with, is just because we have the technology to be able to do something specific, does that mean we have to use that technology? I mean, this comes to play, it seems to me, in terms of end of life scenarios. You know, anyway, I want to stop us here and have a quick discussion on what topics, or we can continue till 12 and talk about it next time, because we're still going to be using this sheet next time. We're still there. Is that what you would prefer? When we get closer to the end of this, we'll talk about what topics?
I think so.
Okay. All right, it is terrific to study with you guys. All right, so I think you've gotten some of the implications of, now remember, Dorf is saying this is how Jewish law has worked. When it took a look at medical issues, these are the assumptions, right? These are the underlying assumptions, or what does he say? Underlying beliefs. All right, so we're going to see them at play. Let's start, someone who has really not, Ruth, are you able to read? We're at number 2, human worth stems from being created in God's image.
I'm so sorry. What page is this?
It's page 2.
Page 2.
It's in bold, number 2.
Sure. Human worth stems from being created in God's image. In sharp contrast to the American way of thinking that a person's value is a function of what that person can do for others, the Torah declares that God created each of us in the divine image. God created the human being in his image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. God created them. Exactly which feature of the human being reflects this divine image is a matter of debate within the traditions. Do you want to read more?
Finish that paragraph if you would.
Not only that this doctrine describes aspects of our nature, it also prescribes behavior founded on moral imperatives. Specifically, because human beings are created in God's image, we affront God when we insult another person. More broadly, we must recognize each individual's uniqueness and divine worth because all human beings embody the image of God.
Okay, terrific. Who hasn't read a whole lot? Mike?
yes.
Could you continue? For this reason?
Oh, sure. For this reason, Adam was created as a single person, to teach you that anyone who destroys one soul is described in Scripture as if he destroyed an entire world, and anyone who sustains one soul is described in Scripture as if he sustained an entire world. And to declare the greatness of the Holy One, praise be God, for a person uses a mold to cast a number of coins, and they are all similar to each other, while the sovereign of all sovereigns, the Holy One, praise be God, cast each person in the mold of the first human being, and none of them is similar to any other. Therefore, each and every person must say, for me the world was created.
Okay, so that quote was from Mishnah Sanhedrin.
Right.
You know, in his book, he says there's a great Hasidic teaching that, you know, you have to balance this, you know, for me, the world was created, with a bit of humility. And this Hasidic teacher says, in one pocket, you carry a piece of paper that says, you know, for me, the world was created. And in the other one, you carry a piece of paper that says, I am nothing but dust and ashes, so relatively speaking. So let's talk a little bit, and I am going to end at 12 because I have another class to take. What are some of the implications of human worth being determined by human beings being created in God's image? All human beings. For healthcare.
Oh,
Judy.
I was good.
It means that everybody is entitled to health care. And that's a big problem in this country.
Right.
That's
Right.
a great
And we will,
answer.
also see that but I think it's number 6, the community must balance its medical and non-medical needs and services. So yes, I think, Judy, what you said is absolutely right. Certainly in an ideal world, everyone is created in the image of God, and we must do everything we can for anybody to stay alive, to continue to bear that image of God. That is to say, at least in an ideal world, every person is of equal value to God and should be to us. I think one of the things this is saying is, now I may be interpreting here, Jews are no better than non-Jews in terms of who needs medical care. Rich people are not better than poor people in terms of, who deserves medical care. The dignity that we show all people should be the same. Each person who comes into the emergency room, and I know from what I speak, having worked in hospitals for 8 years, that they are equally entitled to, they may not all have the same severity of need, but they're all entitled to get medical care. And yes, this is a big problem.
So how do you allocate scarce resources?
Okay, we haven't gotten to that yet, and we won't answer that question, next week either. But clearly, you have to. There are more needs than medical needs within the Jewish community itself and outside the Jewish community.
Where does quality of life fit into this discussion in terms of saving a life if the life has no quality to it?
Well, I don't know the answer to that question, but this would certainly say to me that we start off with the assumption, again, these are working assumptions, that we need to try and save a life because that person is made in the image of God. Now, as we know, some of that may be futile. It may be futile, but we need to try.
This is Ted. Can I step in here for a moment?
Yes, but you only have, listen, my watch is incorrect. You only have 3 minutes.
Okay, well, I won't take all of it. I was going to say that there's a differentiation between prolonging life and prolonging death. And we are not compelled to prolong death. As a matter of fact, that's not one of the choices that we should have.
See, if you had got here on time, you would have realized that we already had that discussion.
Okay, just mentioning it.
Okay.
And Joel, when you were talking about resources, it's interesting. There's a lot of conversation just back to vaccinations and COVID, that there's hospitals that are limiting. There's a hospital, I don't recall exactly where it is. It might be in Louisiana or someplace, that will not do transplants on patients who are not vaccinated. And so there are certain people, there are certain levels of limitations on resources that they're doing. If people aren't willing to take certain care of themselves, that they're you know, there's limited resources and they're going to put certain criteria.
Well, I'm thinking more of the fact that there's 5 people need a kidney transplant and there's 1 kidney.
Right. So now if you're not vaccinated, you're off that list.
I forget about vaccination. Say they're all vaccinated.
I know.
Well, there,
Right.
you know, there
Okay.
are always decisions that have to be made. And I mean, you know, this is that life is not one-to-one. There's always issues of prioritization and
I
whatever.
understand, but you brought up the issue of entitlement, so.
Well,
I don't think it
I
was
brought up the
entitled.
issue of universal health care, Joel.
Yeah, I don't
believe
think it was
universal-
entitlement.
Right, right. Okay, we are going to stop. Joel, what is your email? And I will send you a copy of this.
It's the letter L Shapiro.
L Shapiro?
L Shapiro, that's a long story. 2014,
Hold on. LSHAPIRO,
right, 2014
2014
at outlook.com.
at outlook.com.
Right.
Okay.
I would appreciate it.
Joel, I will make you a copy and walk it over to you in about 5 minutes.
I'll be in another class. Don't knock on the door then.
Hey, Mike,
Okay.
Mike, you take me a copy also.
Sure.
I will send you, do you guys live really close or?
Yes, very
Yeah,
close.
like 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
Good.
All right, if you'd like me to send it in your email, I will do that.
Beth's printer doesn't work, so that's why she
And my
needs.
printer's not working.
Oh, okay. All right, listen, it
I'll
has
make
been a
it.
delight to study with you today.
Thank you,
I hope
Rabbi.
Okay, I hope you feel the same way. And we will continue with number 3 next week. All right, and
Thank
hopefully
you.
then talk about which topics, think about which topics most interest you, okay, in medical ethics. And we won't all agree, but we'll try to reach a consensus, okay? Shavua Tov, a good week to everybody. And thank you so much. This was terrific.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
See you Thursday.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
We got another class Thursday. All right, take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, so what?